Whether you loved or hated that tariff between China and the United States that Trump had in 2019, that's what made Titan exist. I mean, if we'd been made in China at that time, it would have been over. There's no way we would have survived.
Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Titan Batteries, a US-based custom battery pack manufacturer headquartered in Pocatello, Idaho.
Batteries are dangerous goods. If we mess something up, it's gonna get bad somewhere else. If we shipped one battery to your team, just one out of 1,000, like lit on fire and burnt half your building down, I don't think you'd be, oh, it's only one out of 1,000, it's not that bad.
He is a vocal advocate for battery standardization in the defense industry and for rebuilding advanced manufacturing capability here in America.
China's really good at what they do. We are going to have to meet that and eventually exceed that. I know it's very cliche and American flag waving and eagle screaming to say this, but Americans freaking awesome. We can do this.
Over the last decade, Titan has grown into a leading source of NDAA-compliant power solutions for defense and unmanned systems with over 1,000 custom pack designs spanning multiple chemistries and applications.
We actually loved COVID because COVID was like all of our competition, all these Chinese companies, they were out.
Everybody, please welcome Trent Clawson. Trent, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here.
Yeah. He's in the worldwide HQ here at Firestorm for our conversation. Trent, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Trent Clawson. I was born and raised in Alaska, so I'm far from home. But I went to school in Rexburg, Idaho, of all places. After that, I got a job at Walmart in 2008 when times were crazy. But during that time, I was really passionate. I still am passionate about engineering and business and entrepreneurship. And so I started a YouTube channel building drones in 2011, back when it was just RC airplanes back in the day.
Of course.
And during that time, though, I needed a better battery to achieve my goal. My goal was to fly an airplane really far. And so to be able to do that, the chemistry just didn't make sense for lithium polymer. So went to lithium ion. That was way before anyone was talking about alternative chemistries than to LiPo would be. And broke up a couple of records, or got some attention, I should probably better say. And so I had some companies reach out and say, hey, can you build us one? Could you design us one? So I put my business hat, my entrepreneur hat on and thought, okay, maybe I can make something out of this. And that became Titan. Started the company in 2015.
Okay.
So it's just been just about 11 years now. And I started it with $50 from YouTube money to start it. And it's been a whole ride since then. Give you some idea, we were 8 people in December and we're over 80 today.
Amazing.
And it's just growing like crazy. Obviously, you and many other companies, I'm sure have seen the same.
Yeah.
As those demand signals really start spiking, you start getting those zeros.
Yeah.
You're going to have to scale to meet that.
Of course. A lot of that driven by like drone dominance, or what's been the big growth factor for you?
Yeah, I would say, obviously Russia and Ukraine, I mean, yeah, preaching to the choir here, but Russia-Ukraine conflict really highlighted the capabilities that drones would have beyond just a commercial application. You know, when we go to commercial UAV show or these other shows, there was a lot of sellers and not a lot of buyers. You know, you'd talk to companies, they might want 100 batteries, but no one wanted 1,000 batteries or thousands of batteries. It's just, you know, how many, if you're building a craft that's going to, you know, monitor methane on a oil field, you don't need 5,000 drones. You need at most 100 or something. And so because of that, it was just hard to get the zeros behind it, right? Anyway, so, but when Ukraine and Russia kicked off, which I know you know, were part of this too, is just at the very beginning, just side note, how crazy it was to see just these little drones that we were so familiar with just dropping grenades, right? That was how it was at first.
Day one. Drop grenade inside the tank hatch, right?
Seriously. And when you watch that, it was just, you know, it was just crazy for me personally to see, because I'd been building drones for so long, just this world of that. To me, it was all science and creativity and exploration, which it still is, of course, but to see it transition to that was a little terrifying at first. But at any rate, this obviously highlighted the capabilities. And so there was a lot more investment. Companies are getting into it. But at the time, people were still, when we'd buy things or when people would contact us or reach out to get product, they were still not asking where product was from. In fact, we had customers, we would ask, hey, can I get this battery? We'd build it and ship it to them. They get it the next day. And they're like, how'd you get these so fast? You know, how'd you get these from China so fast? And we're like, no, we build them here in Idaho this whole time, you know? And so yeah, it was, so there was, that gives you the level of which no one cared where these batteries were coming from.
Sure.
They were just buying them, no questions asked. And then obviously with the FCC, drone dominance, the Gauntlet, all these programs have not only increased demand, but of course, making them required to be made by domestic or by allies. And so that's put companies like Titan in a very small set of options that they can choose from.
Yeah.
Which is great because it really rewards companies like us who have been working at this for over a decade, right? And also, to be honest, it's better for the industry anyway. Obviously, we can talk more about that.
No, keep going, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, to dive right into it a little bit more, drones are crazy, like they're crazy hard to get right because, man, how to say this? I would say that they're a multi-platform, multi-tier, multi-level challenge. You have electronics, navigation, batteries, of course, payloads. The mission's changing all the time. The customer's changing all the time. The Department of War, all these drone gauntlet programs, the mission's changing every time, which it should be, right? And obviously you see what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. They're changing how they're deploying those systems on a nearly daily basis. And when you talk to those guys over there, they are innovating crazy fast because they have to stay ahead of the game. And of course, for them, it's life or death. So it's a different pressure than we're feeling in the US. But at any rate, all this is happening. And the reason why it's so valuable, I think, to have it in the US, honestly, is if we're going to have the kind of innovation that's going to be required to make these systems that capable, to have them scale so one person can control 10 craft, 100 craft, or whatever it would be, to take that deployed soldier and so that he's not having to fly that craft all the time. It can be a tool for him rather than it controls him. Then that's going to take some serious innovation. So that proximity has to be way tighter. Those time zones, they have to be aligned. We have to have the same culture, the same community.
Have you ever been to Shenzhen?
I've not been, actually.
So when you go to China, you can they have almost like an internal Amazon. So if you want like a design or a color or an injection molded piece of plastic or a PCB, like you're talking like day or two turnover for some of this stuff. And that's like when I hear that from you, like from an alignment standpoint, like we're almost having to start from scratch here and rebuild a lot of the building blocks that will allow us to build, test, modify at high speed. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, just your story right now of going from 88 to 80 people in 8 months is, descriptive of that problem that we're facing now, you know? Do you get concerned sometimes that the government just wants to snap its fingers and then have everything sourced in America?
When I talk to the Department of War and the Army and, those guys that are making those kind of decisions, I think what they want is they want us not so reliant or completely non-reliant on China. And like you just said, and I agree, China's really good at what they do. Yeah. And we are going to have to meet that and then eventually exceed that. And I honestly believe, I know it's very cliche and American flag waving and eagle screaming to say this, but Americans freaking awesome. We can do this. We're hardworking, intelligent culture. We have done this in the past. We gave a lot of that manufacturing capability to China because I'm bouncing all over the place here, but capitalism's amazing, but it wants to optimize against cost.
Yep.
And if you can find a country or a culture that's willing to work for way less and you can get the same product or the perception of the same product, then why wouldn't you do that? Well, that has its limits and you give up a lot more than just cost. And that's what we're facing now.
Dealing with now.
Right. And so I think what they want is they recognize that it's not only a matter of defense, but it's a matter of what we're mentioning. We need this capability long term. And if we're going to rely on these systems to maintain freedom, then we have to own these. And so I think the vibe is when I go to these conventions and everything is, I think they set out the goal. They set out what they're like a banner. They're carrying the banner, right? They want us to take this hill. This is where we're headed. We want to, and that's what we need. Industry needs that. We want to know where are you headed, and so we can, if we want to go after that business, we want to align our interests to that. And then hopefully they give us the demand signal, which gives us the ability to invest in something, building buildings, hiring people, doing R&D. It's capitalism 101, right? We're doing that to align to take advantage of that opportunity. But I don't think I know they know that it's going to take time. I think there is definitely sometimes when they're not perfectly aligned, like the FCC saying all batteries will be acquired domestically as of today. And it was like, we can't even make 10,000 a month. Our whole country can't.
Yeah.
Right. But they're like, okay, well, maybe you can do that over the next year or two. Like, okay.
Sure.
That's I honestly think that's doable.
And so what do they need to do better to get this right, in your opinion?
The government?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Honestly, I think for Titan, for us, from my perspective, I feel like because where government and capitalism overlap is what we're dealing with right now. And the problem is, you don't want government getting too big, but you don't want capitalism doing the whole thing, because otherwise, if capitalism was running the whole thing, we'd be waiting for the actual order.
Of course.
But we want to anticipate that. And so I think what they need more than anything is to give us those very confident, strong demand signals, or funding where they can't give that demand signal. And they may say, look, I can't guarantee you 1 million drones over the next 12 months with cash. Like, I can't buy them right now, because they might not even know which drone or which mission they need. But if they are willing to contribute to a fund or even a rollout of that, like a demonstration, like build a building that can reach this output, and maybe it's not fully utilized, but it has that capability. It's up to them. They either can buy it or pay for it. Otherwise, they're going to rely on capitalism to do it. And I know, both of us being business owners, I have a saying that the enemy of investment is uncertainty. And so the greater that uncertainty, I just, unless I wanted to lose my shirt in it, I can only go so deep. And when you have growth rates like we're both going through, where you're, 2xing, 3xing, 10xing, that's, there's a limit to how far you're willing to push that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's, you either got to subsidize this and treat this like a 10-year strategy,
right?
Not a snap the fingers and it'll be ready in 2 years, or you have to continue to show orders to buy down the risk so that either an investor or a bank will underwrite it.
Right.
There's literally no middle ground. And that's what China has done for 30 years is they've subsidized all of their industries.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And so we're going to need to play that game through one of those two kind of channels that you just described if we're going to compete.
Right.
Yeah. Let's kind of let's go down the government rabbit hole a little bit.
Nice.
Tell us a little bit about NDAA compliance. What does that mean to a lay person,
sure.
Right? And how does that affect the industry you and I are in?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, what it's asking is for us to be completely non-reliant at some point off of China or other countries like North Korea, Russia, et cetera.
Yep.
And that's what the paper says. What the strategy behind it is, if we want our responsiveness, our capability, our ability to maintain our defenses, both in the US and our allies, we have to have both production and engineering outside of China completely. And the good news is they've given a timeline. It's not today. It's over the next 2 years. I think it's by the end of 2028. And it's a phased approach. I think different, whether it's magnets or cells or speed controllers or flight controllers, they all have different stages of this being hard. Like cells, battery cells, for example, is very hard to do a new facility in the course of 2 years would be lightning speed. And so, there's only so many things you can do there. But for NDAA compliance, it also considers to what level you're vertically integrated. And so, for example, a cell manufacturer, which is not what Titan does, we build battery packs, so we don't build the cells, but we talk to our cell suppliers every day. What they're going to be looking for is moving the actual cell manufacturing out of China into somewhere like South Korea or other countries, including the US, by the way. That is happening more and more every day. But then once the cell's out of that, but you still have materials, especially graphite, these things that are coming from China that will probably still keep coming from China until we can spool those other things up. And that's going to take years to get that all, especially the volume we want and the quality we want. It's going to take some time.
So that begs the question, right? Is this move towards NDAA compliance actually making the supply chain more secure? Or is this kind of theater and it's allowing the primes to check a box when we're not addressing the actual underlying variabilities or problems?
I can tell you from Titan's world, our company has been USA made since 2019 completely. We started in 2015, but had complete transitions early 2019. So we're done. The battery management systems in our batteries, those are the chips and everything, they're all NDA compliant today. So that's, when I say easy, it's achievable and doable, and we're there already. And other companies too, not just us, of course. But the cell manufacturing, that's going to take time. I think, but to answer that question, I think it's totally doable. It feels like it's happening. And there are companies, actually, just side note, speaking of cell manufacturers in South Korea, for example, were pursuing EV vehicles hard for decades. It got investment from big companies. Can't say all the companies, but publicly traded companies, and they themselves are publicly traded companies, right? These are big entities, but the EV has not become so cool anymore, and so you have these auto manufacturers that are not consuming the cells they thought they would be, and so a lot of those companies are starting to say, well, this drone thing's coming up,
right?
Let's go after that.
Let's do drones.
And so you have a lot of hardware and engineering that is already in place, and so another way to say it, today, if you ask me to get an NDA compliant cell at 10 times the volume we're doing today, I wouldn't be worried about that. Now, 100 times that, it starts pushing it a little harder for sure.
Okay, so let's stay on the NDA theme here for a couple more questions, right? What did you guys do to position yourself to be like a go-to NDAA compliant option?
What's funny is like so many, I don't know how you feel about this, but like successful businesses are all about luck and taking advantage of luck. It's like a fishing thing, right? The fisher, you can't control the fish, but you can, get the lure in the water and be a good fisherman. That's like on entrepreneurship, the same way. So I wasn't like in, 2011, I thought I'm going to start this YouTube channel and build drones, and that's going to turn into a battery business. And then in 2026, it'll be a part of FCC's ruling. That was never the thing. Titan was always NDA compliant from 2019 because that's just who we were.
Yeah.
And honestly, why we built batteries in the US, it had nothing to do with NDA compliance because it, of course, didn't exist at the time. It was only because of the quality. And by the way, I believe strongly that our product, I know this is true, our batteries cost less than they did when we got them from China. They cost less here today.
Why is that?
Well, at the time, I'll give you an example. We had like this little 3-celled little battery. From China, it would probably arrive to me landed about maybe $15 a battery cost. And that was maybe 2018. This is pre-tariff between China and the United States, the first one. Well, about 80% of our product was made in China at the time, about 2017, 2018. Well, when the tariff came up between China and the United States, that first Trump presidency, we thought we were going to get skipped by that. And when I say we, there's 3 of us. We're just sales and shipping, basically, because we weren't building a whole lot. At any rate, and then when that came in, when it arrived to us, it suddenly was involved in the tariff. And now we're at 25% cost. It was a bad day. And so it was like, do we take our costs up 25%? What do we do? Like, we shut down, what are we going to do? And this was June, it was like May of 2019. And I was like driving home one day and I thought, oh, a side note, I've been trying to train other countries to build our same batteries. And it was taking hours just to drive the most basic thing. And I'm like, I can do this here with an American. And so I had this thought, I know they're making money. Like that manufacturing company's making what, 25% or 30 or something. So that means I can be 30% worse than them and still and it'll cost the same, right? Just basic math. Like, okay, I can be 30% worse than them. Like I can tolerate that.
Sure.
And so we went cold turkey, no new product from China, ordered only raw materials from then on. And then for all of 2019, I think we made like $500 at the end of the year, like net. It was pretty rough on like maybe 700,000 top line. So it was like barely, although we didn't lose money, but it was, and I still wasn't getting paid at the time either. So at this point, I'm on like my in-laws basement driving my father-in-law's truck, right? So it was pretty rough at that point. But at any rate, the next year, 2020, worked crazy hard to get costs down, sales up, and we're able to do that in those first few months. And then that was a long story to say. It used to be 15 roughly cost pre-tariff. We could get that same battery made in the US for 12. And so why? I mean, that's a whole story, obviously. How do you get manufacturing efficient?
What Well, give us the three.
Yeah.
What are the three most important things you need to do
to get manufacturing efficient? Well, some of this, I'm not a Lean Six Sigma guy. This is all me. I'm a business major.
This is what you did.
Yeah, this is what I did.
Yeah, let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. So at the time, there's a book called The Goal. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's amazing. The audiobook is fantastic. I think it was written in like the 80s, but it's so good. The audiobook is like, it's not just read, it's like performance. It's not like sound effects and stuff like that, but it's so good. At any rate, I read that book or listened to the audiobook version, and it has elements of what I'm describing here, but essentially is anything that doesn't contribute to the battery functioning, to its performing its task. So if it doesn't make the battery better, perform, or cost less, we can't do that thing. And so it was about, we made some rules. We made rules like you couldn't hold anything, you couldn't measure anything, you couldn't cut anything. And when we did things like this, it forced that user to be hyper efficient in anything they were doing.
Okay, so when you were kind of going through the scaling effort, what were some of like the biggest challenges you guys faced?
Well, I was almost turning back to you at some point too, because I'd love to hear your story on this. So batteries are dangerous goods. If we mess something up, it's going to get bad somewhere else. And unfortunately, that would be not in our building anymore. It'd be in your building, someone else's building. And so any one of these, all these boxes, they're labeled with this, diamond of do not touch kind of vibe. And so if you make, tens of thousands of those a month, it's a lot of risk. And so for us, it has been, how do we scale production and engineering and quality? And because these are batteries, they're aviation grade, aerospace grade products, it has to be like amazing from day one, with a lot of these technologies, if you buy 1,000 of one thing and one breaks, you're going to be suspicious of the other 999. It'd be like if the one time you got in your car and you clicked your seatbelt in, and when you get out of the car and the seatbelt just falls out, you'd be like, you wouldn't trust that seatbelt anymore. Right?
Ever again.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's just like that. So if we shipped one battery to your team and just one out of 1,000, like lit on fire and burned half your building down, I don't think you'd be, it's only one out of 1,000. It's not that bad. I mean, so in other words, like it's huge risk.
Of course.
And so safety is crazy important, and we have to have, the assembly is obviously a big risk factor there. So to scaling that means like to go from 80 to 8 or 8 to 80, you're not just 10xing your capacity or 10xing your risk, you're 10xing all those things. So, okay. So yeah, how have we done it? Is how do we had to break away from osmosis. So osmosis meaning, if you and I are, if I've joined your team, and let's say you're a battery engineer and you're going to teach me how to be a battery engineer, which actually, let me back up just a little bit and say, you can't just order battery technicians and battery engineers on Amazon Prime. Like they don't exist, which to skip back even a bit more to why China is so hard to get away from is that they've had battery engineers and other engineers for other motors and flight controllers and these other technologies for so long that they're already great at it. And so there's no battery engineer course at a university right now. There should be, but there's not. And so because you can't just find them, I can't put a post on LinkedIn and say battery engineer. There's not that many of them. And so what we're actually looking for now is how do we get someone with good character, good personality? How do we take them from that and spin them up to being this great battery engineer? And the same thing on technicians. We get you're not going to find someone who's built batteries in Pocatello, Idaho, which is where we're located. One of our facilities is located. And so how do we take someone who has a great personality, great character, and get them that capable? And so going back now to the osmosis thing, so Titan has worked very hard to be very good at training. And when we started scaling hard, I saw in the future, if you will, and thought, this is not going to end. Like this is only going to get more important that we're good at this. And so what we actually need to do is not get good at training just one person. We need to get good at training 1,000 people. So everything we did about onboarding or training or hiring had to come under the idea of, can we do this with 1,000 people? So if I had to train 1,000 technicians in 1 week, how would I do that?
Sure.
Now I don't know if that'll ever happen, but had to have that mentality so that everything we did was scalable. And so the copy paste was important to us. So that basically, to to get right to it, that training is no longer osmosis. We have a whole regime about whether you're an engineer or a shipping manager or a technician or a site manager, one of our locations. What does that look like for you? What is your responsibility? How do I, we have courses, labs, certification processes, and people are certified to pass you off. I know it sounds like, Boy Scout merit badge, but it kind of is.
That's fine.
So now you're certified, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm certified to glue it. I'm certified to weld. And then there's different tiers inside that.
Sure.
And so
you've gamified it.
Yes, literally. There's achievements. There's a leaderboard.
Cool.
Everyone has a leaderboard. It's pretty fun.
You said you're a business person, kind of like I am too. Did you put yourself through the training process?
I did.
Cool.
Yeah, of course.
Good.
A lot of stuff I wrote, but I still have to take it. Yeah,
Good.
Of course.
Good.
Well, and our engineers do as well. So the engineers, for example, in our business, they don't build batteries as much because they're so focused. Yeah. They used to, but these days there's so much.
Yeah.
They might have 20, 30 accounts a piece. It's just, there's so many. So now we have, but when they join our team, they have to also be certified to a certain degree because and build batteries themselves, at least at the training stage, so they can know what they're handing off to someone else. And then, of course, our engineers, I think it's probably the same here too. Our engineers and our production team sit in the same room. And so they're coming in from lunch break.
They're walking around. So they're all working together.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. So that you close that loop up.
Yeah. How important do you think is that feedback loop? Because I think it's something people forget. You can't just build things in a vacuum.
Well, simple example, when we were made in China, began pre-2019, I could only do maybe a version or two a year, honestly, because it had, you had to design it, communicate it. There's some language, cultural barriers there. It was just really challenging to clearly communicate what we wanted changed. You had to make a lot of changes all at once.
Yeah.
And then you would okay, that's good. Then you would lock it in, get that shipped over by boat, it'd arrive. You were praying it was correct. If it never was, honestly, it was always 90% okay, tolerable. Yep. We'd fix it and put stickers over stuff that weren't right and stuff like that. And then you repeat that, right? In the US, we can make 4 or 5 changes a day.
Yeah.
It's so much faster.
Yeah.
And I know you know this, but if you it's like an investment. If you compound something twice a year, is obviously very different than you compound something multiple times a day. And so its effect isn't just if you did something 12 times a year versus 1 time a year, it's not just 12 times bigger, it's 100 plus. It's dramatically different.
What I try and explain to people along these lines is that what makes small companies move faster than big companies is decision and risk. And what do I mean by that? Say you're at a big company and you get to make one important decision a day, okay? That decision is binary. So either it works or it doesn't. So let's say it's 50%. So in the course of a week where you make 5 big decisions, maybe 3 of them pay off, right? And we round it up from 2.5, okay? At a small company, if you make, and so then you can multiply, right? Let's call 3 times 50 weeks. So 150 big decisions a year.
Right.
You're at a small company, say you make 5 decisions a day and they're binary, right? Now you're at 12.5. And again, I'm not rounding up. Right. Or if you round up, you're at 15.
Right.
So let's say it's 15 and then you multiply that by 50. I mean, you're talking 700 something, right? Proper good decisions versus 150. And it's exactly what you're saying, right? The ability at a small company to make decisions and then try things and pivot is what allows us to outpace everyone else.
Yeah.
And
now it's a challenge for us. Have you ever heard of the phrase, don't let the old man in? It's this idea that people, as they get older, one time when you're 20 and you sprain your ankle, you get over it and you move on. When you get to 50, 60, 70s, 80s, some people sprain their ankle and they just won't recover anymore. They'll be limping for the rest of their life.
Totally.
And so there are some people out there that won't let the old man in. Yeah. They'll sprain their ankle and they're in their 60s and they're like, I'm not going to leave it this way. I'm going to fix this. And they're going to do the physical training or whatever to get over that because they're not going to let that mentality in. For companies like ours, getting bigger, we can't let the bureaucracy in. You have to stay nimble. And you have to say things like, there's no excuses here. I know that's what traditionally should happen. Businesses get bigger, then you get more bureaucratic. Who says there's no law of physics that demands that? Yeah. And you can absolutely make decisions to at least have teams that stay that way. And so you can keep that mobility because I think defense, that's what's so different about drones too, is we're not talking about an Abrams tank. This craft, it weighs less than 1 kilogram. Well, some bigger, of course, but a lot of like the ISR drones they're relatively small. They're maybe 1.5 kilos or something, and so it like lends itself to innovation, constantly changing and innovating, and so you have to remain that way.
How do you do that with an organization that's grown 10x in the last year?
I think you keep it crazy flat. So how we've done it is we have a kind of a leadership team, if you will, and there's half a dozen of us, but then there's an AI layer. I don't want to get off crazy on the AI path, although we could talk about it, of course.
Oh, we love it here too.
Yes. There's a whole AI layer that takes out all middle management. There's no like senior this. It goes, so we keep it crazy flat. And then every unit, so for example, in our organization, we have a strategic account manager, and this individual is like a CEO of their team. They have two mechanical engineers, which is like our battery engineer, electrical engineer, and they have kind of like part-time ownership of a software engineer. This unit, they go out like a little raiding party, if you will, or whatever. They're out there supporting individual customers, and we have copy-pasted multiple teams like this. So and then those teams are aligned with a production line. So they actually have a company of like 15 people or 10 people that are running on their own, and they're held accountable to their own metrics individually. And so technically, I mean, within reason, you could have hundreds of these teams. Like there's no limit, especially the AI layer and that transparency and KPIs and things that are managing all of it. It's totally, we've not yet seen any stress marks on that model yet.
Before AI, how were you doing it?
Well, we were small enough.
Interesting.
Honestly, we kind of skipped that stage.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing. I mean, I was the only engineer at the company 18 months ago.
Sure.
So now we're pushing 20.
So why Idaho?
Yeah. My wife's family's from there.
Got it.
And at the time, most of our product was made in China, so it just didn't matter where we lived. Just ship it to where we were.
Sure.
But literally, we moved in, I think, May 19th, 2019. That next shipment came in, I think it was like the 23rd or 24th of May. Tariff hit. So it was like no time.
Interesting.
So yeah, it wasn't like I looked at a map and thought,
then in the middle of COVID too, where all the supply chains broke down.
We actually loved COVID.
Of course, I'm sure you guys did.
Because COVID was like all of our competition, all these Chinese companies.
Couldn't do anything.
They were out for like a year.
Exactly.
And it killed a lot of those organizations, killed the interest in it. And all of our customers, we were one of their only options. So it was great for us. We, I'm not here to pound a political system here, but whether you loved or hated that tariff between China and the United States that Trump had in 2019, that's what made Titan exist. I mean, if we'd been made in China at that time, it would have been over.
Sure.
There's no way we would have survived.
I want to ask one last question before we get into some like personal stuff.
Cool.
Battery standardization is a discussion that I've heard a lot about recently. Like, maybe give us an overview of what those discussions are, and then like I'd love your thoughts on it.
Sure. Man, standardization. I have like a 3-hour PowerPoint. So it's so important to us. I'll compress it though in much less time. I think the challenge is, what's the problem? The problem is when you go to a forward operating position and you go to a base and you see 10 different craft, 10 different batteries, 10 different chargers, none of them work with each other. This is crazy. And you have guys who are cutting toothbrushes in half to save a few grams of weight. And then you're asking them to take all these different chargers and batteries. Yeah. It's madness. And it's not just that, it's also the SOP, the standard operating procedure. Can this battery operate in the cold? Because it'll operate hot. If I push this battery down, this button, does all the LEDs mean good? Is red bad? I mean, there's no uniformity between any of it. Sure. And so, as you know, as many people know, wars are like 80% logistics. I don't know if that's the right number, but it's crazy important. You know, that it's like a good plan, well executed. The execution is a lot of logistics in there. So, okay, so if you have this problem, so how do we get here? Well, a couple things have happened. One is batteries have almost always been an afterthought. They've always been, I can just grab it off the shelf. It's a certain S&P count, a certain size, because it came from like the hobby industry. You know, people, the whole drone world came from the hobby industry, almost all of them. And so they were used to that. Well, when they start saying, well, I want to look better. Yeah. I also know that I don't want to hand this battery that just has a connector and a balance lead and like a 4-button charger, if you're familiar with those.
Sure.
I'm not going to hand this to an operator who's never done this before.
Sure.
And try to teach each one person. Because if you get it wrong, it can like burn the battery up, literally on fire, right? So there's a huge risk there. So they're saying, okay, I want to make this simple, like a power tool battery. Mm-hmm. They start asking questions like that. So we start building a problem where they're all asking these questions individually, every one of these companies. And so they all make up their own solution. They all look different. They all perform differently. And then because their craft is unique compared to other crafts, there's no coordination because they're competitors.
Sure.
So you have a performance unique, you have an evolution that leads you to that, and then there's no collaboration on it, which I don't blame them necessarily because they want their own thing the best they can be. And all these guys are engineers, and so they want to solve the problem.
Their way.
Yeah, their way, which I totally get, which is why we love them, right? Yep. Me too. I'm an engineer too, so I put myself in that category. But okay, so that's where we're at. But we have to, so we can't leave it that way.
Sure.
So how do we move forward?
Yep.
Well, a couple of things have to happen. First of all, the whole industry has to accept that we're going to take some local impact, meaning there's a drone that performs a certain task for a certain distance. Where we're saying we're going to standardize this battery, you might lose 2% performance. Mm-hmm. But what we gain in the whole and the whole organization, yep, interoperability goes way up. Mm-hmm. So the effectiveness, the lethality is dramatically more synergistic impact, if you will, mm-hmm, beyond just the individual compromise. Mm-hmm. And so again, Titan has this saying, no excuses. Like we still have this idea that we can still make a battery that's standardized, that is good or could be better than what you have. Mm-hmm. Like we're not going to just say, throw our hands up and just say, oh, it's standardized, it's going to suck, get used to it. We're not saying that.
Sure.
We say, no, we're going to make it standardized and better. Okay, so then if we standardize this, which is a whole journey of how you could do that, of course, what these drone companies now could have is, of course, a time to transition that. But now that they know the standard exists, then they can have, a year, 2 years to say, okay, the next time I change this, I need to at least start transitioning.
Sure.
Right. But the other benefit too is if that battery is already there and it has already gone through all the certifications, mm-hmm, all the testing, and we have thousands of them and the cost is 40% better than what you were paying, it would incentivize you as well, or a drone manufacturer as well, to say, well, I'd actually like that. Mm-hmm. Now I don't have to call, and to be blunt, more competition. So we build batteries. We're a pack house. If there's half a dozen American pack houses and we're all making the same battery, that's more options for you. Mm-hmm. And anyone being a drone manufacturer, and also you don't want to single source any of this stuff. And so having multiple options is going to be better. So it's going to be painful. There's going to be some changes that have to be made on the platform side, but we're going to have time to do it. And then companies like Titan need to be tough and make good stuff so that you don't get burdened with the junk.
So it's your take that the standardization, like the resistance to that, is coming from the individual firms?
I don't know if it is yet. I think people are talking about it. I think it's still talk.
Okay. So you don't think there's any resistance yet to this
Not
idea?
Yet.
It's so nascent.
It's so new that I know they do know the cells have been standardized.
Sure.
And you may have heard of that.
Of course.
There's the cell sizes. So the 30-second pitch there is you had cylindrical cells that were standardized because that's the way they were from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Pouches were not. They were all over the place. Mm-hmm. So they standardized the pouch cells, mm-hmm, and that gives companies like Titan and others to start saying, okay, we can choose 5 different cells from 5 different manufacturers, fit in the same enclosure, the same battery management system. Now we can start competing on performance and price. That was a good first step. But the pack is multi-domain, much more challenging.
All right, let's change gears here for a second, right? What are you reading right now? What are you consuming or learning about? And it can be for fun, it can be for work.
Yeah, I'm actually a lot on X. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of X. I'm trying to stay, my feed is pretty attuned to drone stuff.
Cool.
So keeping up with that. I still think that LinkedIn has some good value. I know there's a lot of AI stuff written in there, mm-hmm, but it's always good to see where companies are coming from, and what they're working on. Mm-hmm. I would say, yeah, it's funny. A lot of non-traditional media. I don't look at the news at all, not to get political, but that left me 10 years ago. I don't consume that anymore at all. I love talking to our customers.
Sure.
I spend a lot of time with them, mm-hmm, and a lot of our customers, their customer is deployed they're on the ground. They actually know what's going on.
Sure.
And so the Department of War is great to talk to them, but I feel like they're further. They have more layers between them and our customers have fewer layers because they have guys that are using their aircraft every day, today, right now.
Sure.
And so, and most of our customers are pretty cool. Like we can talk to them and say, hey, can we get feedback from the field? And they're happy to give that feedback.
Interesting.
And so, as far as like business, like our business, that's definitely the most efficient way to get information. I mean, me personally, I'm reading through Michael Crichton's library right now.
Cool.
So I love to read.
What are you reading?
I just finished Congo.
Cool.
And I actually watched that movie as a kid, so I just finished that. And I'm reading Jurassic Park right now.
The OG?
The OGs.
Yeah, it's an incredible book.
Yeah, these are like, reading for me has been something I've not been able to do for the last like decade.
Yeah.
So
now you got to catch up on all your books, right?
So now I get that.
Yeah.
Of course, the 7 Rules for Life, David Peterson was a really big impact to me. I love that book. Yeah, there's many others, but those some come to mind.
Thanks for coming today, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's great.
It's good to meet you, brother.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Drone Wars podcast. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe to catch all the latest insights for all things defense and geopolitics.